Hey everybody, it's me, Shane. I wanted to go back into Romans really quick and Romans 10, just to kind of keep on track with a little bit of our Bible study stuff. So Romans 10, last week we went through this portion right here where it says, it talks about Jesus coming, or Paul saying that he would really love it if the people of Israel would be saved, because he knows what enthusiasm they have towards God, but he also knows that they they think they get right with God by following the law, and he's trying to tell them you don't get right with God by following the law. You get right with God by believing in Jesus. And then he goes on to say here in verse 5, it says, "For Moses writes that the law's way of making a person right with God requires obedience to all of its commands," right? So you got to follow every letter of the law, make sure that you're doing everything correctly, make sure you're following every part of it. And if you don't, you miss it and you're out. So that's a big part of Moses's law. But it says, and this is a big statement here. It says, "But faith's way of getting right with God says, don't say in your heart who will go up to heaven to bring Christ down to earth, and don't say who will go down to the place of the dead to bring Christ back to life again. In fact," it says, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and in your heart." So what does this all mean here? Um, it's not by something that we do. It's not um, by saying that somebody needs to go up to heaven to do it, and who somebody needs to go down to the place to bring Christ back. It's not any of that. And here's what it says. And that's why it says right here, it says the message is very close at hand, it is on your lips and it's in your heart. And that message is the very message about faith that we preach. This is one of the most important statements in the New Testament, and this is something that that like if you ever hear about, hey, you have to believe in your heart and accept Jesus into your heart, this is where that comes from. It says, "If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God, and it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved." So it's not just when it says openly declare, it's not just like a um, something that you say it once. It's something that you believe. It's something that comes out of you. It's something that um, that it also says openly declaring your faith that you are saved. So it's something that you are able to constantly say. It's something that you're honestly able to, that you proclaim to others, that you tell others about. It is by believing in your heart that you're made right with God. So what it's saying there is, it's not something that by doing something. It's not by, like, he's trying to get the Jews away from saying that they got to fulfill the law, that they got to do all these different commandments. And so it says, "For by believing in your heart that you're made right with God." So it's by just believing that Jesus did what he said he did, and believing in that Jesus was who he said he was. And that's how you're made right with God. That's how you're made righteous. The Jews believed that you were made righteous by doing what? By doing things, by doing more and more. So and like by serving the poor, by serving others. And do we do those things? Absolutely. It's something that we do out of who we are, out of love. It's something that we end up, because of what Jesus did for us, we end up being able to say, I love people enough that I do these things. It's not so I get something out of it. It's because I genuinely love people. So that's why we serve. That's why we do things like that. It goes on here. It says, "As the scriptures tell us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced." Jew and Gentile are the same in this respect. They have the same Lord who gives generously to all who call on him. That's an awesome promise. So anybody that calls on him, he gives generously. "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved." So saved from what? Saved from our sins, saved to heaven. This is what that saved means when we talk about being saved. It's accepting Christ into our life and making him Lord over our life, and proclaiming that, but also believing that believing in our heart that we're made right with God. 14, it goes down here, it says, and this is talking about like well, I'll just read it quick. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they've never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That is why the scripture says, how beautiful are the feet of messengers who bring good news. And so it goes back to that part when you openly declare that Jesus is Lord. This is that part where people are actually like proclaiming that, like, Jesus is Lord, like, believe this. This is important. This is something you need to know. And that's how people are saved. It's by people telling them. It's by bringing that good news. That good news is like considered the gospel. It's the story of Jesus. It's what he came to do and how he came to do it in his life story. And then it says in verse 16 here, it says, but not everyone welcomes the good news, for Isaiah the prophet said, Lord, who has believed our message? So faith comes from hearing, that is, hearing the good news about Christ. But I ask, have the people of Israel actually heard the message? Yes, they have. Paul says this because he's actually been the one to bring a lot of the message to them. The message has gone throughout the earth, and the words to all the world. I think I'm going to stop right there today, but hey, this is just a little bit of our Bible study. I know it's not like the same, but I'd love for you guys to listen to this and give me any feedback you got. And if you want to, I would be open to doing like a Zoom kind of like video thing until we can get back together. Just let me know if you guys ever want to do that, get together in like a Zoom call and do a Bible study. So blessings. Good to see, or I'm not seeing you, you're seeing me, but that's all it is. Cool. See you. Have a good Thursday.